humanity and the need for reparations for African nations. A resolution on the matter was introduced on Wednesday at the General Assembly in New York. It received 123 votes in favor, 3 votes against. They were Argentina, Israel, and the United States, while 52 countries, mostly European, including the UK, Portugal, and Spain, all abstained. This is when the vote actually took place.
Resolution A/80/L48 entitled Declaration of the Trafficking of Enslaved Africans and Racialized Chattel Enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
No.
The result of the vote. The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 123, against 3, abstentions 52. Therefore, draft resolution A/80/L48 is adopted.
Folks, as we said, the 3 countries that actually voted against this resolution were the United States, Argentina, and Israel. The countries that actually abstained from the vote: Albania, Andorra, Armenia, Australia, Austria, Belgium, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Cambodia, Canada, Croatia, Cyprus, Czechia, Denmark, Estonia, Fiji, Finland, France, Georgia, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Latvia, Liechtenstein, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Monaco, Montenegro, the Netherlands, New Zealand, North Macau, Norway, Oman, Palau, Paraguay, Poland, Portugal, Romania, San Marino, Sao Tome, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, as well as Ukraine and the United Kingdom. They all abstained. There were 52 total abstentions, 3 against, and 122, of course, the votes that actually were for this numbered 123. Ghana's President Mahama spoke about the transatlantic slave trade earlier today.
Your Excellency, Secretary General of the UN, Excellencies, permanent representatives, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, progress is made in little steps. It is a forward motion towards something better, and changes often come incrementally. Today marks the International Day of Remembrance of the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. It is a day on which we honor the memory of the approximately 13 million African men, women, and children who were enslaved over the course of several centuries. We remember them through articles, oral histories, through broadcast programs, books, music, visits to museums, monuments, and memorials such as the Ark of Return, located right here at the Visitors Plaza of the United Nations headquarters. Through these activities, we do more than remember. We document and educate, we gain greater perspective, we find the delicate balance of learning from history so that we do not repeat it while leaving our pain behind. In doing so, we begin to heal individually within our immediate communities and also within the global community. This day of remembrance did not happen by accident. In 2006, our global community gathered here, just as we have done today, and resolved to designate the 25th of March of the following year a day of remembrance. It marked significant progress. Then the following year, in 2007, we decided to make the event an annual one so that the 25th March of every year would be the International Day of Remembrance of the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. That marked an additional step in our forward motion. And so it's indeed fortuitous to be here today, 2 decades later, addressing the General Assembly on behalf of the African Group regarding the draft resolution entitled Declaration of the Trafficking of Enslaved Africans and Racialized Chattel Enslavement of Africans as the Gravest Crime Against Humanity. In September last year, at the 80th session of the General Assembly, I stood in this exact place and served notice that Ghana will move a motion to declare the transatlantic slave trade the gravest crime against humanity. This current draft resolution is a result of months of consultation and consensus building by continental bodies, nations, experts, scholars, and jurists, with the sole aim of achieving a united front and grounding the final outcome in truth, compassion, and moral conscience, remembrance, education, and dialogue. So today we come together in solemn solidarity to affirm truth and pursue a route to healing and reparative justice. The adoption of this resolution serves as a safeguard against forgetting. It also challenges the enduring scars of slavery. Madam President, let me conclude with 2 significant quotes by 2 great leaders of history, one of them white and one of them black. The former President of the United States of America, Theodore Roosevelt, said, and I quote, "With a great moral issue involved, neutrality does not serve righteousness. For to be neutral between right and wrong is to serve wrong."
I used to be the best. I had it all. Respect, money, a happy marriage. You needed a form? I was your man. 52 seconds. No one ever made the registration form faster.
11 seconds!
Then she came along and started using this thing called JotForm AI. You tell the kid what you need and it just creates it for you. Forms, analysis, feedback. At first, I thought it was a bad dream. Conditional logic so complex that it will make your head spin. And then design. Color schemes out of this world. God, the background. Where did she get that image? What's my place in this world? That little bastard's good. I'll give you that. Wow, that's actually pretty cool.
Again, civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King also reminds us, and I quote, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." We've traveled this long road, each step guided by a desire to be better and to do better. Each step bringing us closer to the kind of world we would want to leave for our children. And so delegates, on this beautiful day in March, were called to stand on the right side of history. Let it be recorded that when history beckoned, we did what was right. for the memory of the millions who suffered the indignity of the slave trade and those who continue to suffer racial discrimination. Let our vote on this resolution restore their dignity and humanity.
Now, yesterday, Ghana's president did not hold back criticizing the United States and Donald Trump for their attack on Black history, Black authors, and Black books.
Here in the United States, Black history courses are being removed from school curricula. Schools are being mandated to stop teaching students about the truth of slavery, segregation, and racism in American history courses. Books about those topics are being banned in schools and public libraries. Museums, art centers, and other institutions whose budgets rely in any way on public funds are being prohibited from scheduling exhibitions and programs or from displaying materials promoting racial awareness or Black history. Much like the law that was put in place to regulate the punishment of the enslaved in Barbados, these policies are becoming a template for other governments as well as some private institutions. At the very least, they are slowly normalizing the erasure. They are slowly normalizing erasure.
Now, folks, before today's vote by the United Nations, Ghana's president led a solemn wreath-laying ceremony at the African Burial Ground National Monument in New York City, paying tribute to the nearly 20,000 Africans who were enslaved and buried there. The poignant gesture marked Ghana's commemoration of the International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade. It was part of a broader push for reparatory justice. New York City President Zoran Mamdani, he spoke at that ceremony as well.
First, thank you to the President of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, for hosting today's wreath laying. Ghana is a nation that holds deep meaning for me. My father gave me the middle name Kwame after Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, a leader who fought for freedom. And that longing of freedom unites all of humanity across geography and history. It is that longing for freedom and the sacrifices made by so many to win it that we are here today to commemorate. And I want to acknowledge a number of leaders that are also here with us. It was a pleasure to be preceded by Reverend Al Sharpton, as well as members of the President's team and representatives from across the region, including the Caribbean. I also am here with a number of leaders from our administration. We have our Commissioner, Afia Atta-Mensah, who is here with us. Commissioner Ana Maria Archia from the Office of International Affairs. We have our Public Advocate, Jumani Williams, who is here with us, as well as State Senator James Sanders, Assemblymember Al Taylor, so many other leaders, including our outgoing Commissioner as well. And we are here in many ways because nearly 400 years ago, the first enslaved people arrived at the port of New York. 22 souls, likely from Angola, were originally aboard a Portuguese ship bound for sugar plantations in Cartagena before the Dutch intercepted and enslaved them once more, this time under the Dutch West India Company. And so began a shameful history of slavery here in our city. One that is just as much a part of our story as the Revolutionary War battles that were fought in Brooklyn or the bridges and skyscrapers that defied any precedent. According to New Amsterdam's 1665 tax list, 12% of the residents of this city at the time were slaveholders. By the mid-1700s, New York City was home to the most enslaved people outside of the South, until the Act for the Gradual Abolition of Slavery in 1799. Even then, freedom was partial and often cruelly withheld. None of the enslaved New Yorkers who helped to build Wall Street ever benefited from the enormous wealth that it created. And the dignity and security granted to so many of our earliest settlers was denied to those of African descent, even those fortunate enough to be deemed free. Land deeds once granted were rescinded, the franchise of voting so often out of reach. Our city and its incredible spirit, wealth, and global significance is inextricably intertwined with the horrific history of the transatlantic slave trade. One need look no further for proof than the very ground upon which we stand today, which was at one time the largest cemetery of black New Yorkers, many of whom were enslaved. It was only when construction began on a 34-story federal building on this site in 1991 that our city paused to reckon with what was here. I am grateful to the community members, historians, archaeologists, all those who helped to reveal what lay beneath our streets, to draw attention to the history of our city. And as was said earlier, the tension that also lies at the heart of it. That history must never be forgotten. And when we tell it, let us tell it in its totality. For we know the history of black New Yorkers is not just one of oppression. It is one of resistance, of organizing, of fighting for freedom, among so much else. Let us tell the stories of black New Yorkers who fought in the slave revolt of 1712, demanding dignity only 1 year after the first slave market in New York City was erected at the foot of Wall Street. Let us tell the story of the community of Weeksville, founded in 1838, just 11 years after New York State outlawed slavery, and how it would grow into a self-sustaining, safe haven for escaped and freed slaves with its own schools, churches, and newspapers. And let us tell the story of the many who continue to resist the long shadow of slavery and discrimination. From the thousands of men, women, and children who participated in the silent march on Fifth Avenue in 1917, to the activists and archivists who have continued to honor the legacies of those whose names would otherwise be lost to time. Today, as we gather to remember the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, let us recommit to the work of building a New York City where every New Yorker can live a life of dignity and freedom that so many other New Yorkers were so cruelly denied, that so many sacrificed so much to obtain. And in a city that is proud to celebrate the intertwined nature of black history and New York City history, let us also ensure that this is a city where the writing of black history can continue in the weeks and months and years to come. May we honor the memory of those that we have lost as we build a New York City worthy of its struggles.
All right, folks, we have Jahan LeBlanc back. Jahan, you were saying that it's a resolution, but the reality is it is important to see the folks who are on record and where they stand in terms of other countries.
No, absolutely. I think a part of this process, part of the reason that President Muhammad introduced this resolution is because he wanted to elevate the conversation politically and certainly diplomatically. So I think it's a good step in the right direction. However, what President Muhammad is asking for in terms of reparations is nothing unprecedented, right? Other groups have received reparations. You have the Japanese, you have the Holocaust survivors, and now African Americans or people of African descent want reparations for the harm that had been done to them. So I think it's a good step in the right direction. But however, in order for the UN to actually do something about this, it has to go through the UN Security Council. Otherwise, this is merely a resolution that will just elevate the conversation politically and diplomatically.
Well, and we know that the United States is one of several countries that has a permanent veto on the UN Security Council, and so that stops anything from moving forward.
Absolutely. And under this administration, it was expected that the Trump administration was not going to recognize this resolution, was not going to vote in favor of it, because as we know, this administration is anti anything that it considers to be DEI or anything that it considers to be rewriting, bringing back history or setting the record straight. All right. So it was expected. So I think this is the beginning of the process. We're not going to see the end of it today through this resolution. It's going to take some time. Perhaps under the next administration, the Mahama administration will lobby the United States to actually recognize this and bring it to the UN Security Council. But you also have to get China, which China actually voted to recognize this, as well as Russia, right? So there are a number of other ones who are a member of the UN Security Council who actually abstained from voting, whose votes will be vital to moving this process forward. I certainly applaud President Mahama for doing this. But at the same token, though, what does that mean, right? So if we're going to acknowledge this to be one of the worst things that have happened in history, an atrocity, what does that mean for people of African descent, perhaps who want to return back to the continent, right? Like, for example, if you wanted to move to Ghana, the citizenship process costs roughly $2,500, right? Whereas a Jew who would like to return back to Israel, the process is actually, in many cases, free, right? To come back home. So I think the continent collectively, the African Union, should have a better system in place to better accommodate people of African descent who wish to perhaps return back home. Secondly, I think one of the worst things that happened to people of African descent, besides slavery, was the colonization of our minds, right? And until we train ourselves in the way we see ourselves, the way we see the continent, and the way we think about the world, I think no matter what kind of reparations that we have as a group of people, it will be incredibly difficult to advance.
All right, Jahan LeBlanc, we certainly appreciate you joining us from Africa. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks, bringing to my panel, Dr. Zachary Kirk, educator and content creator from Atlanta, Rebecca Carruthers, President and CEO of Fair Election Center out of D.C., Patrick Schaefer, political philosopher and public scholar out of Chicago. Glad to have all three of you here. Zachary, I'll start with you. Listen, when you look at this here, again, does it carry weight? No. Is it a question of seeing where countries stand? Yes. Listen, you talk about Argentina, they have a serious issue with racism. Listen, a lot of the Nazis fled Germany after World War II, and they decamped to Argentina. And so you have Israel and the United States, the three countries voting no. And so let's talk about that, but also those 52 countries that abstained. A lot of European folks abstained.
It's criminal. It's embarrassing. We live in a nation that was built on the backs of our ancestors, enslaved people. And the least this country can do, not what they should do, which is reparations, not what they should do, which is ensure fair and adequate and equal opportunity to every single American citizen, because that's so far beyond the understanding of those that we, the American people, have put in power. But the least they can do is recognize the atrocities. This was the simplest, easiest thing this nation could have done to make a small step towards atonement for all of us who are those who remain of the evil that they did to our ancestors, and they couldn't even do that. This is extremely disappointing, and this is something that I'm so thankful that you're bringing to the forefront, and that needs to be echoed by your audience. We just share this and share this broadly so that our people know what our country continues to do to us every single day.
It was the least they could do. It did carry any weight whatsoever, Rebecca, but it's abundantly clear where they stand.
Roland, I had so many emotions watching that because this is one of the few experiences that I've ever had in life where I've seen another country stand up for me. And the reason why I say it like that, being a Black American whose family has been in this country for centuries, I don't have the luxury like some of my friends who are first, second, third generation in this country, where if it goes down in this country, they know their country of recent origin will stand up and say something. They know that that country's president or premier or ambassador is going to talk to this government about how their people are being treated in this country. But when you are a Black American in this country, you don't get that. And so to even see Ghana stand up and advocate for Black Americans in that way is so powerful, because we don't have that. We don't get that, because as far as people are concerned, we didn't have a history. As far as some people are concerned, Black Americans didn't have a history before 1619, and that simply is not true. So that was very powerful. But it also makes me think about whenever I go to Europe, I think about the last time I was in Portugal. I took a African tour of Portugal tour, and it was led by several Africans. And what was interesting about that tour, they really pointed out how across Portugal, they don't talk about their role in the slave trade. So there's many Portuguese citizens who have no idea the role that Portugal played in kicking off the transatlantic slave trade. And when I've done similar tours in France, it's a cognitive dissonance. So am I surprised that those European nations who primarily benefited from the transatlantic slave trade, aka the greatest human trafficking in human history, does it surprise me that they had nothing to say? No, but guess what? We're coming for our money.
Absolutely. Patrick, your thoughts?
I think it's pretty on brand for the United States. They've been pretty consistent. I think that the mere fact that we're talking about reparations and redress and repair is because that slavery has an afterlife. And there's a logic to that afterlife, that what we see is that if there was any rupture in slavery, it was just legal. But the logic and the system of slavery still persists. Had it not persist, then we would not be talking about the inequalities that we experience, that we need reparations for our history. How is history behind us if the structure of that history is still present with us? And so I think that it is a great conversation, and I'm more interested in what does material justice look like within this context.
Absolutely. And so we'll certainly see what is next, but we appreciate the Ghanaian president moving forth with this and getting these countries on the record.
The contract bound her to sing only for him, and he took most of her earnings. She was trapped, and her once joyful singing became a burden. One day, Maya's best friend from the village, Ravi, visited her. He noticed her sadness and asked what was wrong. When Maya told him about the contract, Ravi decided to help her,